Hello, my name is Elwood Yoder, but you already know that, I think. I've been invited to tell my story of what it's meant to work at this school over 33 years. And so I put together some photos, some thoughts, and I'd like to use Romans 12, verse 2 as my Bible verse. The Apostle Paul wrote, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will." Whether it's the baritone that I played in middle school, my lovely wife Joy there on the left, or good friends at this school, here's my story at Eastern Mennonite. I grew up in Hartville, Ohio, the son of Elmer and Esther Yoder. My older sister, my younger brother, we lived in an average sort of life in Hartville, Ohio. My mother, a homemaker, very involved in the church. My father, a minister and a school teacher. I remember taking a bath with my brother in the tub at the house where we grew up. I remember riding our mini bikes on Eder Road with my dog Shep. I'm there in the red sweatshirt. And my life was transformed in 1968 when I was baptized. It was one of those moments where I gave my life to Christ and said I wanted to publicly be baptized. My senior photo from high school, Central Christian High School, Kidron, Ohio. I worked hard to manage my frizzy and curly hair. My good friend Don, there in the photo on the left, helped me immeasurably, encouraging me in my faith, and we did a lot of music together, which was a big part of my growing up years. After high school, I attended Eastern Mennonite College. I dated Joy Risser in my old blue two-door Skylark, 65 Skylark. I grew the fro during the college years, and in 1978 we went on my three buddies and I went on a 6-month jaunt into the Middle East, Egypt, Jordan, Israel, and up into many countries of Europe. And I've talked to most of my classes over the years about that very formative trip that in many regards transformed my life. It was while I was in the Middle East that I prayed and received confirmation that I should get on back to Virginia and finish my college degree. I got to know good friends on that trip, my buddies, that's me in the Dead Sea. 1978, lots of good experiences floating there in this historic region of the Bible. My wife and I then were engaged. Joy and I were engaged in 1979. That's our photo there on the left. And married in 1979. My father, Elmer, married us. My two sons, Phil and Nate Yoder. My wife and I had both been in college when we got married, graduated together. EMU class of 1981. Coming up on another anniversary this year where we'll get together with our friends from that year of graduation. I've been privileged to earn several master's degrees over the years while working here at Eastern Mennonite School. In the early years of our marriage, my wife and I did a lot of music together. We sang at weddings and church and different locations. When our first child arrived, we recorded our music, made an album, and I've been actually able to use some of these digital files in the COVID era. Then we had children, again, a transforming time in our lives. Nate, Maria, and Phil, all adults now, and we have 4 grandchildren. Each one of these stages of life is transforming. I've committed to following Christ in my life at each step of the way. I've taught in 4 different schools, 3 of them in Pennsylvania, Eastern Mennonite, of course, here in the Valley of Virginia. Each school has taught me new things. When I began teaching, there was very little technology to be had. I used a typewriter in my early years. I used a ditto machine, a chalkboard, and often handwritten materials. I began teaching U.S. government, economics, migrated to other classes over the years. I've enjoyed each one of these classes and have considered it a privilege to teach students in these classes. My wife and I have been involved at the Zion Mennonite Church in Broadway, about 9 miles from EMS, in the last 30 couple years. Good friends who carry us through the ups and downs of life. And these friends have helped my wife and I and our family to follow Christ and to be faithful to God. About 20 years ago, several musicians invited my wife and I to join a gospel bluegrass band. I didn't know much about that genre of music, knew very little, but I picked up my guitar and started learning. And we performed many shows around the Shenandoah Valley. And talk about transformation. I began to realize that there were many people who lived outside of my small world of Parkview and Eastern Mennonite and even Harrisonburg. I discovered that there was a range of opinions and perspectives out there, and there were good people far beyond Harrisonburg and Parkview that thought in different ways. And this was a very transformative time in my life where I began to realize that there were people who were very different than the world I lived in here at Eastern Mennonite. And it was a positive time in my life. That gospel bluegrass music came into the school as I launched the Sunshine Band some years ago. Many students, some teachers have helped out, a variety of musicians. We've had a lot of fun doing music. Again, a time of transformation, allowing music to filter in and enliven our lives together. In that context, I wrote this song, the music and the lyrics to Build a Bridge. It's a social studies and Bible kind of class song about bridges helping us to reach the other side, bridges crossing the great expanse between the sides in society or the worlds around us. And the refrain says, build a bridge, build it strong, walk across it with a brand new song. A song of love sets the whole world free. Christ's melody, we sing the harmony. My students have been a pleasure to teach, each one an individual and unique God, a gift of God, and I've loved teaching students across the years in many classes. Whether a field trip to Washington, D.C., whether a unique student who we make a special friendship with, or 3 girls who agree to sing a Beatles song in chapel, students have been a wonderful gift of God in my life. National Honor Society students, reading in class, doing research in my classroom. These have been wonderful gifts, and I thank you to each student who's been in my classroom. A field trip there on the left to the University of Virginia and Monticello. Teachers' assistants who help me do my job. A wacky world history class from years ago. I wonder sometimes where those students are and what they're doing. International students who have enriched my life, thank you so much. Going to sporting events, bringing a senior for the first time in his schooling career to an athletic event in our gym was a wonderful event. Students from many years across the era. Each student a gift of God, transforming my life. I hope that I've been faithful in my classroom, carrying out the mission of Eastern Mennonite to call students to faith in Jesus Christ. International students, many of them. Sometimes I wonder, where have they ended up? Where are they working? Where did they go to school? service opportunities, and students from literally around the world attending my classroom here at Eastern Mennonite. I've been very privileged as a teacher in the school. One of the really highlights for me working at Eastern Mennonite has been the junior senior banquet. From the get-go, about 33 years ago, I was invited to be a co-sponsor of the junior class, along with Barbara Goucher there on the far right with the red flower on. My wife there along with me. But working with Mrs. Goucher over the years was a wonderful opportunity. Many students, many banquets, many themes, and many junior movies. I've been privileged to work with newer co-sponsors, Ms. Gasho, Ms. Hershey-Hare. Thank you very much. I wish for you the best as the banquet moves forward into the future. Another real highlight that has transformed my life, I think in positive ways, helping me understand God's will for my life, are the discovery trips. I've gone on 4 of them. Here's a highlight from one of the discovery trips. The discovery students and teachers had battled the night before high winds in Rocky Mountain National Park. We were worried that the wind would tear our tents away while we were in them, and we got very little sleep, if at all. The next morning we got up and we climbed this mountain to over 12,000 feet. I was pretty exhausted, but I wanted to make it. I wanted to get up there. And Cece, Bethany, and Eve stopped and we took a photo. Just a high point, a highlight of discovery for me. In 4 discovery trips that I've been on, I made good friends. Like Ms. Young, thank you for traveling on these trips with me. Mr. Lee Good, an amazing leader, a very good friend on these discovery trips. The very first discovery trip that I participated in was Lewis and Clark, where Mr. Myron Blosser and I had a vision to retrace the Lewis and Clark Trail on its bicentennial. And so we did. And away we went with students. My son was in the group. There we are on the Pacific Coast. As with Lewis and Clark, the original expedition, they were overjoyed when they got to the Pacific Coast and saw the water. In 1997, Mrs. Yutzi and I went on an early sort of discovery trip. We went to France and Germany, studied church history and the French culture. There are parents of current students in that group, aunts, uncles and aunts as well. Another transformative series of events in my life, which has helped me see God at work in the world, have been New York City mini terms, e-terms as we call them later. I've taken many students, gone on 14 trips. One of my biggest disappointments with COVID was not being able to go on the New York City e-term with students last year. I still regret that trip being canceled. History Day, thank you to Mrs. Roth, Mr. Kurt Stutzman, Mrs. Melendez, and others, students and faculty administration who helped plan and organize what I thought were 5 wonderful history days for our community. Being transformed. Well, yes, I'm the same individual as the boy in Hartville, Ohio, as the first-year teacher in Pennsylvania there in the middle. Sure, I'm the same individual, but I've been transformed by many people, by many friends, by colleagues, by students, by involvements, by activities, by degrees. So many things have transformed who I am, and I believe my mind has been renewed. I've been able to test and approve what God's will is. I believe God's good, pleasing, and perfect will. Allow your lives to be transformed by Christ's renewing, infilling spirit. I believe, students, and you will find your lives enriched with many activities and many friends along the way. What's next for me? I will continue to write books. I'm commissioned on 2 books already. A couple more are in the works, invitations coming my way. I'm the editor of a journal, a quarterly journal here in the Valley. I want to be involved at my home church, chill on the back deck with coffee once in a while, take a long lunch break if I want to, and continue on my little writing business called Plowshares Publications. Many, many thanks to the administration at this school, the faculty, and the students. May God bless each one.